Anderson. I'm a naturalist with Yosemite Conservancy. I've been living here in the valley now for 15 years, and I'm the 9th member of my family and 2nd generation to work here. Thanks for coming out on the Conservancy program. We are the first and largest nonprofit here in the park. So 75 cents of every dollar spent with us actually gets put back into the park. And through people coming out on programs like this and through donations, we put about $15 million back into the park every year.
Wow.
So we are the nonprofit that is associated with the Park Service. So the Park Service is not allowed to accept donations, so we accept the donations for the park and then put them back into the park. So this is a really easy walk that we're doing today. I know it says it's supposed to go till 7. We'll be ending at about 6:30 at the latest because 7 o'clock is full on dark. And this is one of the last ones of the season. So we'll be talking a lot about preservation and protection, the mistakes we made in the past, what we've done to correct those mistakes, and what our plans are for the future. So we'll be talking about all sorts of things today, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I like questions. When y'all ask questions, I don't have to think of things to talk about. You guys all ready to go? Yeah.
You gotta ask him for the trees. Oh my god, can we just for the trees? I forgot. What's that? I wonder if that's the building that is. Maybe that's that's not the old one. I don't know what it is though. Wow.
Like some candy.
You good?
但蛮准的。好读那蛮准的。你怎么去量测？你跟我讲一下。因为他会看你的心跳。但是你是可以跟别人比，像有之前我那时候用手表或灯，没有3个完全不一样。
We'll be talking about that later.
不是心跳吧？因为它是不是距离？哦。
Two of them.
谁的？我的。哎，你从哪里丢出来的？我的口。
All right, can anyone tell me what type of tree we have above us right now? It's a 3-letter word.
Oh.
These are black oaks in particular. So now black oaks are a broadleaf deciduous tree, meaning they lose their leaves during the winter time. And their acorns, a lot of animals rely on them for food. So now what animals do you think rely on the acorns for food?
Squirrels.
Squirrels are one. Bears. I heard someone say it.
Bears?
The bears.
Wow.
So our bears are mostly vegetarian, and here in the park we have about 300 to 500 black bears. This is a black bear, despite what color it is. It is the species Ursus americanus, the American black bear. Most of it, yeah. We've got a little biker coming through.
Oh yeah.
But always keep in mind there are going to be bikes wherever we stop. So now most of our bears are actually this brownish red cinnamon color, even can be full on blonde because that blends in with the environment better around here. We do have black bears here, but they actually really stand out a lot. So now all of the horror stories you hear about bears are grizzly bears. We don't have grizzly bears here anymore. The last grizzly bear seen in the park was in 1896.
Wow.
The last grizzly bear seen in California was in 1924. The only place where you can find a California golden grizzly is on the California state flag. It's an extinct species of bear. It was hunted to extinction because back then conservation wasn't really a thing. Dealing with a very aggressive 1,000-pound angry bear was a thing. So we don't have black bear, we don't have grizzly bears here anymore. Now, grizzly bears and brown bears are the same species of bears. They're both Ursus arctos. I really like that scientific name because Ursus is Latin for bear and Arctos is Greek for bear, so it's a bear.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so we don't have grizzly bears here anymore. So this time of year, the bears are just now kind of starting to bed down for the year. But when they're getting ready to hibernate, how many calories do you think they need every single day?
Oh my God.
Throw out some numbers. How much?
20,000.
20 to 25,000 calories every single day. This is about 20 to 40 calories.
Oh my God.
So it's 11.5 pounds of acorns every single day,
Wow.
or it's 100 pounds of raspberries every single day, or it's 40 Big Macs or 93 Snickers bars or 9 large
Okay.
pizzas, which is why they like our food so much.
Yeah.
So now, if a male can continue to find food, or a female that's not pregnant can continue to find food, they might not bed down for the winter. But a pregnant female will always bed down for the winter, and they give birth in the dens. So here's the little baby bear cubs. Now these are not the ranger's arms; these are the ranger's fingers. They're holding them in their palms. They're about the size of a potato. They're very small when they're first born.
Whoa.
As you can see, they don't have their teeth yet. They haven't opened their eyes yet. They do have their little curved claws for climbing. I know, I want to snuggle one so badly.
Oh my gosh.
But we don't do that. Mama would not like that.
Wow.
So now black bears have these curved claws because black bears can climb trees. Grizzly bears can't. Grizzly bears are big enough they can pretty much just push a tree over. But so these ones are very young. And a mother will lose about 1/3 of her body mass nursing the cubs. So now we used to do a lot of mistakes with the bears. We used to do things like the bear feeding shows. We used to pay 50 cents to sit in the bleachers across from our dump and watch the bears rummage through the trash. This is a ranger doing this. And so if you look at that bear, the bear doesn't look very healthy. It's missing patches of fur. And also, if you are this close to a bear, you are way too close to the bears. So yeah, they did this up until about the mid to late 1960s. We also used to just actively encourage people to just feed the bears, which we don't do anymore. And so people just used to hand feed bears all the time. I love their stubby back little legs. They look like little kids. Yeah, once again, we don't do this anymore.
They're so cute.
This is a $250 to $5,000 fine.
Yeah.
Feeding
Not worth
squirrels
it.
are like a $250 fine. Feeding a bear is a $5,000 fine, and you'll probably be asked not to come back. So now food storage is absolutely critical this time of year. They're trying to get as many calories as they can, and don't keep food in your car overnight. The bears will put their claws at the top of your door and just peel your door right off. They're also will just walk around and see which doors are unlocked. They're very good at getting into cars. They are not very good at getting out of cars. And so, yeah, this time of year you cannot keep food in your car at all. And the worst year for bear incidents was in 1996. In 1996, we had 1,600 bear incidents that resulted in about $500,000 worth of damage.
Oh my God.
And we had to put a lot of bears down that year.
Oh.
So then the head wildlife ranger, Steve Thompson, did what everyone thought was going to be the end of his career. He invited William Booth, who is a Washington Post journalist, to come out while they were going to put down a mother bear named Miney and her 2 cubs. I have the article here if anyone feels like crying. It is a brutal article. I've read it several times and I'm just in tears every time I read it. But it got published and America got mad that this was happening in Yosemite. So within weeks we had a $500,000 grant to improve our bear food storage lockers, to improve our educational programs, and to increase the amount of rangers out on patrol. And from 1996 until last year, our bear incidents had dropped 98%. Wow. Until last year. Last year was a very rough, hard, sad year for the bears. So we had to put down a lot of bears last year. So when a bear wakes up, the first things that they live off of are grasses, roots, and bugs. Then the raspberries bloom, and then the acorns fall. We don't really have, it doesn't really rain very much here anymore. And so last year, the raspberries didn't really bloom. So there was a mother bear named Green number 2. It's their tag color and tag number. Green number 2, her 2 little cubs, a cub from 2 years before that, another cub from 3 years before that, and a couple other bears all had to be put down. And another problem that we're having, which is a massive problem, is social media. People have to get their stupid pictures, and they get really close to the bears. They will rush the bears to take pictures of them, just like you see people doing with a bison in Yellowstone, which really baffles me, because I don't know if you've ever seen a bison, but they're about the size of an SUV, and they have horns, and they're angry. But so people rush the bears get used to our presence, they lose their fear of us, and in combination with having not enough food, we had a lot of bear incidents last year. So last year, on one of these 2-hour nature walks, I saw 7 different bears, which is not normal, and I had a group of people with me about this size, and I got charged by a bear, and it stopped about 4 feet away from me and hissed at me, which is not normal black bear behavior. And so my friend up until recently was in charge of the bears, and he had to make these incredibly hard decisions and then carry out these incredibly hard decisions. We tried relocating Green number 2 and her 2 little cubs. It did not work. We trapped them with these over here. These are bear traps. And so we can move them around the park and put them, tranquilize them and study them. So we tried relocating them. It didn't work. We did this several times. It didn't work. And then the last time they came back, they went over to Curry Village. And do y'all know what a walk-in cooler is? Like the big outdoor freezers? Curry Village has one that is a steel-plated door that has a rod put through the lock through the locking mechanism and is padlocked shut. This 150-pound bear put her claws at the bottom of the door, bent the door frame, and popped the lock off.
OMG.
And so it was decided to put her cubs down too, which were both very little cubs. We weren't sure they were going to make it through the winter anyways. But the way my friend put it was that, imagine if you're growing up and you're bank robbers, and all your parents are bank robbers. All you're taught how to do your childhood is how to rob banks. When you grow older, you're probably going to rob a bank. If you have kids, you're probably going to teach your kids how to rob a bank. So they had to make these incredibly hard decisions of putting the bears down. And people don't like hearing these stories, but people come here from all over the world. People leave food in their cars. People leave their backpacks accessible. People feed the animals, and they go home. And then we have to deal with the ramifications. So food storage is very, very critical here because we don't want to put the bears down. Last year was a very rough, hard year for us and the bears. So now if you see a bear, first off, don't panic. They are not out to get you. You are way more likely to be hit by lightning than attacked by a black bear. In fact, I know 4 people who have been hit by lightning. I only know 1 person who's been scratched by a bear, and it wasn't even here in the park. It was in Mammoth Lakes. My friend Chris went to go throw away something in a dumpster, and a bear popped out of the dumpster and scratched him. So he has these 3 claw scars that go up his side, which I'm only slightly jealous of. But so yeah, the bears, it's always, you don't want to be afraid of the bears, but you always want to be mindful of the bears. So a good safe distance to be away from a bear is if you can close one eye and cover it with your thumb. That is a good safe distance. If you can pet the bear, that is way too close. And it's crazy that I have to tell people this, but people do try to do that. We had someone, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, who got bit by a bear because she was trying to take a selfie with a bear. So, social media. But, so now if you see a bear, especially if you're camping, it's kind of counterintuitive, but you want to run at the bear. Because a black bear's natural instinct is to be afraid of anything that it perceives as being bigger and louder than itself. So you want to yell, "Get out of here, bear," so everyone around you knows why you're yelling, so you're not just out hollering in the woods. And if you're actually camping, you have to keep your food inside of what's called a bear canister. And it's not just food, it's chapstick, sunscreen, any medication, anything like that, anything that you put on or into your in your body has to go into a bear canister. We used to have people just hang their food from trees, but the bears figured out how to just chew the cords, and we kept having people fall out of trees. So we don't allow that anymore. But yeah, if you do see a bear, just remember that they are not out to get you. So now, no matter where you're standing in Yosemite, including right now, we are being smelt by several different bears. A conservative estimate says a bear can smell you from around 2 miles away. A more agreed upon estimate is a bear can smell you from around 15 miles away. Which I can't even imagine. We have some hikers and climbers here that you can smell from like a solid 20 feet away. I can't even imagine being bears, and I've definitely been guilty of that myself. So now, there's something fascinating happening in the world of bears right now. It's not happening here, this is happening in northern Alaska and Canada. there is a new species of bear emerging in the world as we speak. So now, polar bears, as they are losing their habitat, they're coming south and they're mating with grizzly bears. Polar bears and grizzly bears only branched off on the evolutionary tree 100,000 years ago. They still each have 77 chromosomes. So there is a new species of bear emerging in the world. It's called a grizzly bear. This is an actual real thing. It is a cross between a polar bear and a grizzly bear. So it's got the snout of a polar bear, that long snout. It's got the huge shoulders of a grizzly bear, and kind of the mixed coloration of the two. It's called a grizzly bear, and it's an actual real thing. Now, if you want to see something stupidly cute, here's a baby grizzly bear.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
I know, they're so adorable. But so now, grizzly bears are pretty aggressive. Polar bears are very aggressive.
Oh my God,
Grizzly bears are mostly carnivores, as where ours are mostly vegetarian. Polar bears are strictly carnivores. That's all they eat. So I imagine the grizzly bears are quite aggressive. I've never encountered one, but now I could ramble about bears until it gets dark. Does anyone have any questions?
Can they breed?
Yeah, they're not sterile hybrids.
Like a mule.
No, it's not like a mule. Since they still each have 77 chromosomes, they can reproduce. And the first one was seen. It was killed by a hunter in 2006. So it's that new of a species. As recently as 2006 was the first one that was seen. So it's a grizzly bear. But yeah, does anyone have any other questions about bears? Alrighty then, let's head this way.
Oh my gosh, yo, that's bonkers.
That's so crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I just recently found a picture of that baby. I was like, that.
That's awesome. That's... Oh. This is awesome.
Oh, Lady Nature, crazy.
This is awesome.
It's like, all right, you hunted the golden grizzlies to extinction. All right.
We got a new one now.
Grizzly bear.
Yeah, right. OMG. And it's even more aggressive.
I could do grizzly bear. Twice as aggressive.
Yo, that's wild. That's so crazy. Okay, we have to ask about the
Twice
trees.
as
Okay.
aggressive and only eats meat.
I know, right? Yeah, I didn't know that about black bears, that they were vegetarians, pretty much.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's pretty neat.
yeah. That's
They're probably
neat.
like vegetarian and like opportunistic.
Yeah, because they can get more dense calories, you know. That's something.
We'll all talk about that a little bit.
They're like hippie bears. They're like not trying to like hurt anybody.
Aww. Except in the pursuit of food, if you give them
Except
food.
unless you got Tic Tacs. Fucks with Tic Tacs hard. Was that chapstick? My lips kind of dry. Let me get that.
Oh, you got some medicine. I'm not feeling so good. Thanks. Oh my god. And they can smell you. Like they're smelling us right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. So this is the bike path, by the way.
You think that one can smell us?
Oh my god, I think I would pee my pants on command. So yeah, this is the bike path that we could ride up. Just by the way. So black oak. Wow. This is so beautiful. I'm really happy we signed up for this. Well, I signed us up for this.
But I also want to build a little house there, and also want a landscape around it. And what do I do so I don't kill the tree? Oh, a lot of cities are saying you're going to kill the tree.
This is really cool that they did that program with the bears. That's cool.
Huh?
That's cool that they did the program with the bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
That sounds like America.
Yeah, that's what we do anyway. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a good business.
Right
It's
on.
fun, yeah.
So if you look at the wall behind me, Yosemite Falls has come back.
Oh,
So this wasn't
yay!
flowing just the cut like before this storm. So now obviously this is not its full
This is
flood
so
potential. So Yosemite Falls is an ephemeral waterfall, meaning that it's seasonal. It's fed by just snowmelt. And so we just had a rainstorm and a snowstorm, and so this just came back. So from the very top to the very bottom, it's 2,425 feet or 739 meters. It is the tallest waterfall in North America and 5th tallest in the world. So just that section we can see right there is the same height as the Empire State Building. Whoa. It's 1,430 feet. Huh. So now, one of the things that happens here during the springtime when the waterfall's flowing at its hardest and the full moon hits it at the right angle, it creates what's called a moonbow. And it's a full spectrum rainbow in the moonlight. What? So I think it was like my third week here 15 years ago. I ran into an employee who had dreadlocks and no shoes on, and he goes, "Dude, we're going to see the moonbow, bro." And I was like, "All right, sure you are, buddy. Calm down." And I get out there, it's like, "Oh wow, you weren't lying."
Wow, that's amazing.
If you come back in the springtime is when it's roaring at its hardest, and you can see the outline of where it flows during the springtime.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's bonkers, yo.
Every season has something to offer here, but if you want to see the waterfalls, it's the spring times that come back here.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's why this waterfall is barely flowing, is because it's fed by snowmelt, and the park is mostly bare granite or sand, so it's not a lot to retain the water. So now Vernal Fall and Nevada Fall are still flowing, but that's because that's the river and they're fed from a lake. They theoretically won't dry up. We'll see what happens in the next few years. But yeah, let's keep on heading down this way.
So Marty, you've been here for 15?
This is such a
More than
special
15
place.
years.
Wow, and you do the natural, obviously the natural tours, what else? Is that,
We do nature walks, history talks, hotel tours, astronomy programs, day hikes, overnight backpacking trips. Wow. Oh, look, there's a huge buck right there.
Oh wow, look at that.
Oh,
Right on the
wow.
left of the trail.
So now that is technically the most dangerous animal in the park.
Oh,
and
wow.
if that doesn't move, we're actually going to have to go around the other side away. So it's the only animal to fatally wound a human in the park. It was back when my parents were working here. I think it was 1980. A little boy was feeding a buck like that, and then a group of people like this surrounded it to take pictures, and the buck took the easiest way out, which was the little boy. So now this time of year, the bucks are actually quite dangerous.
Okay.
People think that they're domestic animals because they have zero fear of us whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, you can see he just doesn't care. But this time of year, like I say, the males are going to start fighting for dominance of the herds. So they shed their, oh, look at the red-shouldered hawk just flew off right there.
Nice. Wow.
They're both right on time. So now they lose their antlers every year and then they regrow them. And it's hard to find antlers out in the woods because animals chew them up because of all the calcium inside of them. So when they first regrow, they're actually blunt and they're fuzzy. And then this time of year, they start sharpening them against trees. And so they start fighting for dominance of the herds. And so yeah, it's eating acorns right now, but this is a buck. It's a male mule deer.
Looking at us.
Oh, it has.
that's a mule
It
deer.
could care less that we're here.
Okay.
We haven't had hunting here in about 170 years.
Wow.
And so it has no fear of us whatsoever. But yeah, let's go back over to the road over here and walk around. That's a little too close for my liking.
Yeah.
But no,
Okay.
people will get right up and try to pet them.
Oh my.
I've had in this corridor right here. I've had to tell 3 people to stop as they're about to put their child on the back of a deer. We had someone get gored through the arm. I think it was 2 years ago because they were trying to pet the buck.
People are insane.
We don't control the wildlife here. They are domestic animals. They aren't domestic.
Dude, that's bonkers, yo.
But,
That's really
but the mountain
special.
lions and the coyotes do take, and the cars take them down too. But so no, we do have mountain lions and coyotes here. I've only actually, usually I tell people you'll probably never see a mountain lion.
Oh.
But last week on one of these tours, a lady told me that she saw a mountain lion over near Mirror Lake during the day,
Oh wow,
which is extremely rare.
that's
Yeah,
weird.
it's gotta be rare.
That's kind of extra scary.
Yeah.
Daytime mountain lion.
The deer is more concerning. Or the mule deer or whatever it is. I forget what it is.
This is like the appropriate time for a mule deer to be out. Holy shit!
We just saw a bear from a safe distance. Oh, gee, but I got it on footage. Oh my god.
Wow. That guy is a little close. And walking towards it.
Oh my god.
He did look really dark.
Keep an eye over here.
Okay.
Now that was a male, most likely, judging by its size, and that was
He
the
moved
first.
pretty quickly.
Oh, they can run about 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah. Where?
Oh yeah, he's right there.
Oh my gosh.
Behind the big pine.
Oh yeah, there he is.
That is a black bear.
Yep. He's a big guy.
Yeah, but let's keep walking this. We're gonna walk around this way.
We're out in the middle.
Yeah, there's. It's at the road. Yeah.
Oh my! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my! Are we too close? Should I be further? Okay, I'm following. Okay. Oh my! Oh my gosh! Oh yeah! Oh no! Oh my god! Oh. Did you get a picture?
So there you go.
Oh, yeah, let's get away from that bear. I don't want to be a snack. Oh my god. OMG.
Yeah, we do. Hey guys, let's keep going. I know it's exciting, but we need to give them their space.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so that's a male. That's a big male.
Oh.
So now our bears aren't as big as people think they're going to be. Let's keep going. So yeah, the biggest black bear we've ever seen in the park was about 620 pounds and is a female. That male is probably about 250.
Wow.
Maybe 300. She was eating our food. You don't get to be 620 pounds.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god, is the deer gonna get eaten?
I don't know, dude. I think the deer might be able to like.
Oh yeah, where is that deer now? I can see the bear.
Then we got the hawk here again.
There's so much going on. There's so much going on.
So when we were driving around in Yosemite, the traffic laws are still a thing. So now if you keep standing here looking at it, cars are going to stop.
Stopping, yeah.
We get to called bear jam.
Oh, a bear jam. A bear jam. That makes sense. Oh.
He's running at
Oh my god. I lost sight of the bear. I'm a little concerned.
The bears aren't really hunters.
Oh yeah, they're vegetarians. So yeah.
That buck is way too, like that buck could seriously hurt that bear.
Oh wow.
And so it's right through there. The buck's right over there.
They keep a distance from each other.
I mean,
there's the
yeah, like I say, the bucks don't really. See, people are already starting to slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so now, yeah, so now that's,
Oh my gosh, there's a person
like I
going
say,
on.
I've actually never really.
Like baby.
No, it's not that big. They are, so now people a lot of the times. What now? No, I'm just. Oh. So now I was like, is there another one?
Oh my god.
I see there is something just past the deer. I don't know. It kind of looks like a cat. Or a
What?
coyote. I think it's a coyote.
Where?
Just on the other side of that tree to the right. Oh yeah.
I don't see it.
I think it's a coyote.
Oh my gosh. What?
This is like the. There's a coyote up over there.
Or something.
Huh?
Coyote over there too. Just past the deer. It's like walking up to, it's walking to the right.
Oh.
The bear?
Coyote.
Coyote? We're getting everything.
That's why I talk about bears right ahead of the
Oh my gosh.
The bear rangers have rubber bullets.
I was gonna say, do they shoot them with these pellets or
Big
something?
rubber bullets and chalk balls that are on the table.
Yeah.
Oh wow, look at the moon.
Whoa.
Year round, there's about 600 or 700 of us.
Huh?
There's about 1,600 of us here in the valley. About 2,500 park-wide.
Those are pretty black rock there.
That was crazy, yo.
Meter, like, are you allowing everybody anybody can come in if they want, or do you limit people at this point?
Oh my god. This is so scary.
Yeah.
One of the parks, huh?
Wow. Look at this whole section we haven't checked out yet. We got the fox, we got bears, we got...
Got a coyote?
Oh my
deer?
god.
Mule deer? It's a different deer than you have?
Yeah, so overwhelmed with all this.
Yeah,
The bear scared the shit out of me.
pretty crazy. Yeah, that was fucking nuts, dude.
All right, then. Go ahead and have a seat if you want, or stand. You all are adults. Those also might be kind of wet, so.
Fair.
Might be a
Fair.
little chilly too.
It's beautiful.
That was exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for playing.
That's right. I'll have to go give him his acorns later. So now, do you think that a forest can have too many trees?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We have 90% more trees than we should have here. 90. Wow. So now this picture is taken from just up over here on the Upper Yosemite Falls Trail. This is 1890. This is World War II. Look how many more trees there are. So 1890, World War II. So now the valley used to be predominantly meadows. So 1890, World War II. Fun fact, World War II was a while ago. And so yeah, so this is we have even more trees than this. So now we have too many trees because we stopped the forest fire cycle. So a healthy forest should look like a quilt. It should have a burn patch next to an unburned patch next to a recently burned patch, and they act as a natural fire break for each other. We don't have that anymore. Ideally, the trees shouldn't really be touching each other. If they're not touching each other, they can't spread fire from canopy to canopy. Also, the trees shouldn't be this tall and this skinny. They should have gotten to a much bigger size before they got to that height, but no fire came through to thin out the forests. So now, there was an event in 1910 in western Montana and eastern Idaho called the Big Burn. And there were several fires burning from steam engines, spewing out all the hot coal smoke. And then hurricane force winds came whipping across Washington and made one giant fire that burned 3 million acres in about 6 hours. Whoa. The flames were recorded to be moving at almost 100 miles an hour. So now, after that event and several other events, is when this handsome fuzzy gentleman first comes on the scene. Now, for those of you who don't know who this is our fire prevention mascot. What does he say?
Only you can prevent forest fires.
That's not what he says anymore. He's changed his tune a little bit. Now
cool.
he says only you can prevent wildfires, because forest fires are good, wildfires are bad. So now a forest fire is low heat, low intensity. It just burns off everything on the ground. It exposes the mineral-rich soil. It burns off all the dead things. And most of the trees will survive a forest fire. A wildfire is scorched earth. Nothing's left alive. How many of you came in on Highway 41?
We did.
So coming from the south, you saw the remnants of the Washburn fire and the Ferguson fire.
Yeah.
How many of you came in on Highway 120? You saw the remnants of the Rim fire. So now, a wildfire completely sanitizes the area. Not even the bacteria in the soil makes it through.
Wow.
So now, the Rim fire at the time was the largest wildfire in California's history at 257,313 acres. And now it's, I think, the 10th largest. So the Ferguson fire, which was 2018, we're just starting to get things to come back and grow there.
Wow.
We believe it was started when someone pulled over in the River Canyon and their hot tailpipe caught some grass on fire. The Washburn fire was arson. We know who it is. We're looking for them. They started a few fires here. The Washburn fire was the biggest. So we also had another fire just outside the park called the Oak Fire, which was in the towns of Mid Pines and Mariposa. So these are two very different fires. So the Washburn fire was on Park Service and Forest Service land and has been relatively tended to over the last few decades with lightning strikes, prescribed burns, and mechanical thinning. And so we were able to redirect the fire in a way we wanted it to go. The Oak fire was all on private property. And so no one had been forced to tend to the land. The land was very overgrown. It hadn't burned in about 150 years. And so the fires raced through this town, and we lost 127 homes. I know several people who lost everything. There was one employee, they had 7 minutes. 7 minutes from the time when they saw the flames to the time that they were in the car and running from them. They had enough time to run out, grab the kids and the dogs, run over to the horse corral, throw open the gate, chase the horses out, and hop in the car.
Wow.
They thought that they had left 2 cats behind, and they thought that they had died. And they came back to their house was leveled, and they came back, and the little cats were there.
Aw.
I have no idea how these little things survived it, but they're even on the cover of all of the newspapers around here. But so very different fires because of land management and having proactive burns. So now, I'm sure you've also noticed that around not just Yosemite, but all of the Sierra, there are tons of dead trees. And that's because of this little thing, Dendrocones ponderosae, the ponderosa eater, or it's more commonly known as the pine bark beetle. So now this is a match head that it's on, so you can see they're very tiny. And they target mostly ponderosa pines, right? Which this is a ponderosa right here. And so the beetles will bore into the living part of the tree. It's called the cambium layer. It's the only part of the tree that's actually alive and growing. And they lay their eggs and the larvae hatch and eat away at the living part of the tree. And they carry a fungus on the underside of their thorax called the blue stain fungus, which acts as a natural coagulant inside of the tree. So it turns the water into the tree and pretty much like a sludge.
Wow.
Since 2011 in the park, we've lost more than 4 million trees. In the Sierra, we've lost around 170 million trees. There's not much we can do about it. We can't spray for it because we tried doing that with DDT, and that didn't work out very well.
Wow.
And so it's the beetle die-off has kind of calmed down a little bit here, but for about 5 years it was wild. You just see a tree, the trees will die from the top down from the beetle, and you could pretty much just pick a tree and watch it die.
Whoa.
For about 5 years. So now, how many of you live in California? So now fire is a very big part of our lives here. Even if you're living in the city does not mean you are immune to it. So now, if you are put on fire evacuation notice, be prepared, have a plan. Where are you going? Which direction are you going to go? Where are you going to stay? You should, we just have these huge bins that are packed and ready to go at all times, so we can just grab them and just take off. Because the shortest amount of time that we've had to get out was 2 hours, and we were evacuated for a month and a half.
Wow.
And so these bins have camping equipment, fuel, water filtration equipment,
Yeah.
water holding equipment, tons of camping supplies. And so if you are on evacuation notice and then you are told to evacuate, don't be these people that refuse to leave. You are putting yourself in danger, you are putting the firefighters in danger, and they are not going to come back for you. And so this isn't just for fires either. This is kind of for all natural disasters. But with fires in particular, when you evacuate, bring everything that proves who you are, everything you own, bank statements, credit cards, because when you come back, there might literally be nothing left. Also family heirlooms, anything that can't be replaced, bring with you. Because this is not going to get better. It will continue to get worse. As we are encroaching deeper into the wilderness, as the world is warming, and it just doesn't rain here anymore. This rainstorm that we just had was about the 5th or 6th one we've had since last February.
Whoa.
So yes, be prepared, be proactive, have a plan. So does anyone have any questions about fire ecology? This is kind of a crazy subject, but...
Wow.
Alrighty then, we are going to cross the road and head over into the meadow.
Cool. This is awesome. Dude, we signed up for this.
Yeah.
It's been very informative.
What was the summer? You know what they have down on a daily basis?
Look at that. How beautiful.
Sorry.
You're good.
Cross-country skiing and backcountry and snowboard skiing, and then you guys ski and snowboard.
Cool.
Yeah, we have a ski resort here.
Oh, Badger Pass.
Badger Pass.
Yeah, okay.
Oldest ski resort on the west coast, oldest ski resort.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
This is really cool. So ponderosa pines and black oak are around here then.
This is
Okay.
all just cleared out.
Wow. What kind of trees are these?
The trees with the vertical strips of bark are incense cedars.
Oh.
Cedars.
Incense cedars. Okay. Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're not redwoods.
Okay.
They are red and made of wood, but they're not.
We needed that. Thank you. We've been wondering what the trees were all day.
I'll point those out. I actually forgot to point those out, so thank you.
Thank you.
So the main trees that you'll see here on the valley floor, other than the black oaks, the trees with the vertical strips of bark are called incense cedars, and then the ponderosa pines are more of the pink ones with the puzzle piece looking bark. These are not redwoods, these are cedars. So those are the main trees you're going to see down here on the valley floor. So now we're going to cross the road. Whenever you are crossing the road in Yosemite, you need to pay attention because they are not. Everyone's looking up. Don't ever assume that a car sees you while
That's
you're
fair.
here or that it's going to stop. This crosswalk in particular.
Wow.
So we'll all cross it together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, don't ever, and also just because you're crossing a one-way street does not mean you shouldn't look both ways.
Especially here, huh?
Yeah, we actually had to close off all this parking right here because people kept getting hit by cars.
Wow. Wow. This is so beautiful.
So is it like too obvious to ask? Incense cedar is incense made out of?
It just smells really good.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, though, I think they do make incense out of it. Like when you first cut it and then when you burn it, it has a really powerful, really good smell.
Wow.
Cedar is one of my favorite smells.
Yeah, it smells so good.
It's funny because people always talk about how much they love how it smells up here. I don't smell it anymore.
Oh,
Really?
yeah. I'm sure. It's so special. It smells
Yeah,
so
I'm
good.
sure after.
You get
I'm
used
just
to
used-
it.
yeah, 'cause I
You
live
get
here.
nose blind, yeah.
But when I go away for a little bit, then come back, then I can smell
notice
it.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it occasionally rains, you'll notice the difference. Just the
I know,
dustiness.
so glad it finally rained. So can anyone tell me what type of tree this is? Oh, I just heard it. This is a giant sequoia.
Yeah.
So Sequoia dendron giganteum only grow in a 200-mile long and 15-mile wide stretch of the western Sierras, mostly between 5 to 7,000 feet in 75 groves. So now this tree was planted here.
Wow.
It's not supposed to be at this elevation.
Oh.
So now this tree's not very healthy. It doesn't get enough water. As a tree grows, it's supposed to do what's called self-pruning. So it's supposed to shed its lower limbs as it grows because it helps protect it from fires. So now when you go to the sequoia groves, how many people have seen the sequoias since you've been here? I highly recommend seeing the sequoias if you haven't seen them. Our biggest tree has a branch that is bigger than this tree. So now when you go to the sequoia groves, you'll see these huge pine cones, and everyone thinks that they're sequoia cones because you think huge tree, huge cone, but those are sugar pine cones. These are giant sequoia cones. So now it was here in Yosemite and in Sequoia National Park that we rediscovered that forest fires are good. I'm not going to say we discovered forest fires are good because the people who had been living here for 10,000 years knew all about that and we didn't listen to them. So now, inside of each of these cones is about 200 seeds. And now giant sequoias don't wholly rely on fire in order to reproduce, but it really increases their chances. And so go ahead and pass these around. So there's about 200 seeds inside of each one of these cones.
Wow.
And the fires come, so for several decades we noticed that no new baby sequoias are growing.
Aw.
And then someone had the bright idea of, hey, let's burn the
Wow.
grove. And
200
everyone lost
seeds.
their mind. They're like, we can't burn these precious trees. So we just did it anyways. And then lo and behold, the next year there's baby sequoias everywhere. So the fire comes through and it burns off what we call the duff layer, which is just this layer of leaves and pine needles. It exposes the mineral-rich soil. It wipes out all the competition. Then all that heat rises up into the trees and opens up the cones, and millions of the little seeds come fluttering down. These are giant sequoia seeds. So now all of its DNA is in that tiny little strip right there in the middle. So they're about the size of a rolled oak.
A rolled oat.
They're very, yes, a small oak. So yeah, these are babies. So all of its DNA is right there in that little tiny strip right in the middle. So after a fire, so each cone has about 200 seeds inside of it. And after a fire, millions of the little seeds come fluttering down. And only one in every few million seeds will make it to a monarch sequoia.
They're really
So a monarch sequoia is a sequoia that can reproduce. And it can take upwards of 10 to 50 years for a tree to be able to reproduce. So now, so the giant sequoias, if you had asked a person, a forest ecologist before 2015, what kills a sequoia, they would have said time. That is not the case anymore. Where's the other one? So now, the base on a monarch sequoia can be upwards of 3 feet or a meter thick, and it helps protect them against forest fires. So for those of you who have seen sequoias, the branches don't start till like 100, 150 feet off the ground, and that's to help them survive the fire. The problem is now we are having walls of flames coming through the sequoia groves that can be upwards of 200 feet high. In the last 2 years, we have lost 20% of all monarch sequoias due to fire. There is only about 50 to 80,000 of them left in the world, and it has been predicted that if we don't get the forest under control around the sequoia groves, we will lose all monarch sequoias by the end of this decade. So the Washburn fire, in all honesty, has actually been kind of a ray of, it's been hope for, he's given us hope, because our forest ecologist Garrett Dickman has been pioneering ways to save the sequoias over the last few years, and with a couple fires in Sequoia and with the Washburn fire here, they've really proven that we can save these trees. We need to have proper forest management, proactive burning, mechanical thinning, allowing fires to go through the groves. If you've ever seen pictures of sequoias wrapped in fireproof material, that's Garrett Dickman and his team.
Wow.
They also started setting up sprinklers throughout the grove to increase the humidity around the grove so that we don't fires, the major fires don't happen as easily.
Wow.
In one fire in Sequoia National Park, we lost 10,000 sequoias. And so now the forest ecologists are actually climbing up into the canopies and they're harvesting cones and collecting the seeds.
Oh my gosh.
And it is still they're still debating on whether or not they're going to do this, but they might start reseeding the groves. Because even though a fire came through and there are new baby sequoias growing, they're not going to produce trees for decades.
Right.
And so they're holding sequoia seeds and are talking about replanting them as the years go on. Usually we don't intervene like this in national parks. People always ask this with bears and all sorts of other incidents. We don't really do that because we kind of let nature take its course.
Wow.
These trees are too precious for us not to do something. So now, in a naturally growing sequoia grove, you can't go near the trees because the roots only go down about 3 to 5 feet, but they'll spread out about 130 feet around them. And the roots will actually interweave with each other, and they'll make a stronger mat that they can pull on each other during windstorms. So now this tree was planted here. It's not supposed to be here. This is the old superintendent's house. So this tree is not even 100 years old yet, and it's already this big.
Wow.
But this is an opportunity you won't get in a natural growing sequoia grove. I shouldn't say you won't get, you don't get. You don't go near the base of the trees in a naturally growing sequoia grove. This is an opportunity to come feel the bark of this tree. You can't do this in the actual groves. This tree probably won't be here for very long. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut it down because of how much water it's stealing from the meadow. But feel the bark.
Oh, it's
It's
spongy.
squishy.
Oh wow.
I wasn't
Yeah, it feels
expecting
just
that.
like you think it's going to feel.
Huh. Wow, it's so spongy.
Yeah, super spongy.
That is super spongy. Huh. Yeah, we felt a lot of bark throughout this trip, and that's really spongy.
All those layers and layers and layers of fiber that can be upwards of 3 feet or a meter thick help it so that the fire can't penetrate down into the living part of the tree called the cambium layer.
Wow.
So the middle part of the tree is not alive and growing. The trees don't grow from the inside out. They add layers onto the outside, kind of like an icicle. My favorite tree in the park is called the telescope tree. It's a giant sequoia all the way at the very top of the Mariposa Grove. And at some point in its 1100 to 1300 year life, it got hit by lightning and it burned the entire core of the tree out. So you can walk into this living tree that is completely hollow and look up and see a circle of daylight above you. It's really cool. It's called a telescope tree.
Wow.
So now giant sequoias reach their maximum height at about 1,000 years. Wow. And then after that, they're like people, as I like to say. They stop growing up and start growing out. So now if you look at the tree and you see how it flares out at the bottom,
Yeah.
the actual technical definition of that is butt swell. And the fact that I get to tell people that really makes me happy. So now California has the tallest trees, the biggest trees, and the oldest trees in the world.
Yo.
The biggest tree in the world is the General Sherman, a giant sequoia. It is 36.5 feet in diameter, which is about 10 meters in diameter. It has a branch. Both of our biggest tree, the grizzly giant, which is 28 feet in diameter, they both have branches that are bigger than this tree. It's hard to describe how big these trees are. So the tallest trees in the world, the Hyperion tree, is the coastal redwood. It's about 381 feet tall, which is about 116 meters. And so the oldest trees are just southeast of here in the White Mountains. And the bristlecone pines started growing when Pharaoh Khufu built his first pyramids in Egypt 5,000 years ago. They're still alive and growing to this day.
Holy crap.
So if you haven't seen the sequoias, I highly recommend them. It's hard to describe how big these trees are. And these trees are older than some religions. That is how long they have been on the earth. So yeah, I highly recommend seeing the giant sequoias. Question.
Where do you,
You can close it.
The Mariposa Grove and the Tuolumne Grove. It is. The Merced Grove.
I'm just getting ready.
Okay.
I don't know how much
That's
further we
Tuolumne.
got.
that one is also?
Yeah.
When we're
Which
walking, I
way
might
are you
swap out.
leaving the park? Highway. Well, I know, but there's 3 entrances on the west. So are you doing south, central, or north? Are you going to San Francisco or towards the? So you can on your way out of the park, you'll drive by the Tuolumne Grove. So there's the Crane Flat gas station where you take a right onto Highway 120, Tioga Pass. You take a right there, and like a mile up that road is the Tuolumne Grove.
Gotcha.他说2个不能去，他说有1个不能去，他说可以。Oh, that's an enchilada shot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not quite kind of. It's very simple. So here's another horrible view. This place is lame. So no.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever looked at them? Oh, that's so what she just brought up is great. It's bad Yelp reviews of national parks. They're amazing.
Are you
I think
serious?
Yosemite's is there are too many trees and gray rocks.
Oh my
And there was
god.
one that said the bugs will literally eat you. But yeah, look up bad Yelp reviews of national parks. They're great. I love them. So we have Yosemite Falls right behind us.
Wow.
Yosemite Point. Indian Creek Canyon is right through the trees. This is the rhombus wall because it's shaped like a rhombus. That's closed because of we're climbing because of golden eagle nesting.
Oh,
We have
wow.
the Royal Arches. It ends with that pillar that's Washington Column. It's supposed to look like George Washington. I've never seen it. There's North Dome up above that. Half Dome front and center.
Wow.
Then it goes down the shoulder to Grizzly Peak. Back there's the panorama wall with the snow on it.
Wow.
This whole formation is Glacier Point.
Wow.
And then this is the Sentinel right here.
Every national park has a sentinel.
Yeah, or and here
has a
it's
Sentinel.
Cathedral. So the cathedrals are across from El Cap. There's lower, middle, and higher Cathedral Rock, upper and lower Cathedral Spire. There's upper and lower Cathedral Lake, north and south Cathedral Creek, the Cathedral Beach, which is in the Cathedral Mountain. So if you don't know what something's name is, you guess Cathedral. That might be it.
This is beautiful.
Mount Rainier from here?
Mount Rainier's just over that hill right over there. For those of you who don't know, Mount Rainier is 2 states away. So now, 650 million years ago, this was the bottom of the ocean.
Oh.
And then through plate tectonics and subduction, the Pacific plate started diving underneath the North American plate, as it's still doing today, and it caused the land to buckle. And it created a huge mountain range that we think was averaged about 15,000 feet high. And so as the plate dove underneath the other one, it created friction, which created magma. So now magma's underground, lava's in the air. That's the difference between the two. So now all of this cooled very slowly deep underground. This is what's called intrusive igneous rock or plutonic igneous rock. They form deep underground in what are called plutons. And so all of this cooled very slowly over hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And so none of this was ever exposed to the air. And then throughout the eons, all of those huge mountain ranges got stripped down and it pretty much filled up the Central Valley, which is why the soil's so good there. The Central Valley, it's about 2 miles below the surface when you actually hit bedrock. And so what we're seeing now is the remnants of that ancient mountain range, essentially the old heart of that ancient mountain range. So now this is all granite. We have a dumb little saying here in the park of don't take Yosemite for granted. But every formation is just slightly different. So Half Dome is a relatively young formation. It's about 85 million years old. El Cap on the other side of this ridge over here is the oldest formation. It's about 107 million years old.
Wow.
So now there was a huge debate for a long time about how the valley was formed. So Josiah Whitney, who was the state geologist from 1860 to 1873, he thought that some sort of giant cataclysm happened deep under earth during an earthquake that caused the valley floor to drop. And the reasons he thought that is because throughout the valley there are all these big spires that hang off the sides of the cliffs. There's the cathedral spires across from El Cap, the largest freestanding pinnacles of rock in North America. And if you look up at the ridges, you see how it's just kind of jagged and sharp. So features like that don't happen from glaciers. They only happen from wind, rain, and time. John Muir thought that this place was carved by glaciers. So he had discovered living glaciers here in 1871. And so there's a huge debate about it for a long time. Josiah Whitney called John Muir an ignoramus and a mere sheep herder because Josiah Whitney was the state geologist and John Muir was a sheep herder. But it turned out in 1930 that John Muir was right, that this place was carved by glaciers. So do y'all know how to tell the difference between a glacial canyon and a river canyon?
No.
River canyons are V-shaped, glacial canyons are U-shaped. So now if you were to follow the river out towards Mariposa, you can watch the valley go from a glacial canyon into a river canyon. So about 1 million years ago, this was all under ice. Everything but the last couple of 100 feet of Half Dome, which are in the clouds right now, was underneath ice. And the actual bedrock is about 2,000 feet below us. So the ice was about 1 mile thick, and this happened several times where the glaciers would advance and retreat, and it carved this huge steep valley. And now that there's no more glaciers here in the valley, there's only one glacier left in the park. The river is going to cut deeper and deeper and deeper down into the bed until it gets down to the bedrock. And eons from now, once again, the valley will be a river canyon with the steep sides and narrow bottom. I mean, a long time from now. But so now, that is a very condensed version of Yosemite's geological history. But we're running out of time and it's going to start getting real cold here. But so now another thing that Josiah Whitney got wrong was in 1870, he said that Half Dome is a perfectly unclimbable summit. He said no man ever has nor will set foot on top of Half Dome. Then this crazy Scotsman named George Anderson basically said, I tag that bet. And so to hike Half Dome, you go around the backside and you come up the far shoulder. And so he would climb barefoot with linen wrapped around his feet, soaked in pine tar to make his feet sticky. And then he would lasso flakes of rock, pull himself up. He hammered in these eye bolts. He would stand on the eye bolts barefoot and then lasso the flakes of rock and made it to the top in 1875. Now we allow about 350 people a day to do Half Dome. So there really was never another half to Half Dome. For the most part formed like that. So this little logo, those 3 lines cut in half, that's Half Dome. The vertical face of Half Dome is the north face. A lot of those companies kind of got their start up here. But yeah, we're gonna head down over towards that parking lot for our last stop, and then we'll head back to the visitor center after that. Any questions real quick?
Right now.
Alrighty then, let's head over there.
This is mind-blowing. This entire thing was mind-blowing.
No.
OMG.
I'll actually talk about that in just a second.
It's the oldest park.
Okay, I knew there was something where it was designated, the first designated or something.
This is amazing. It's so beautiful, isn't it?
This is awesome.
I'm so happy we signed up for this.
The focus of the Conservancy? No, you. Oh, you do. Oh, I do also. Wow. I mean, I love hiking and climbing, and skiing is my favorite thing here. So hopefully this is fun if we start to do this. Is that what you're talking about?
Gosh.
Oh, what I do nature talk, history talk, hotel tours, astronomy programs, easy day hikes. I do overnight backpacking trips. So we do all sorts of stuff. So I work for other organizations.
Do you think this guy does the Starry Night tour? Cool.
He said he does astronomy tours.
Oh,
We'll probably go with him again.
nice. Wow.
Isn't it funny we saw all those things like right back to back and then we haven't seen any of these things?
What do you mean? Oh, all the animals?
Like a
Yeah.
deer, bear, coyote,
That is true, yeah. Saw all the stuff.
within, like, 2 minutes of each other.
Oh my gosh. This is the picture that I was using as the countdown picture for this trip. That's cool. Yeah, this is pretty dang amazing. I can't believe we saw a bear. I'm still freaking out. The deer also, we can't mess with the deer. I mean, my gosh, you know. Not that I want to mess with anything, but I don't want to get mauled by a deer.
So, like, you were about to, like, hook up.
This is really special.
I realized that.
Oh, really?
Like something I would send you when you were first gay. Yeah, exactly. No, don't mixing me up with.
We saw a sequoia tree. We got to touch it.
Farmers caught some trees on fire above the Awani, and there was a fire pole that lasted for like 16 hours.
Oops.
Yeah, oops.
I get why they stopped it. I gotta say it was pretty cool to see it as a kid.
Yeah, they stopped it because of metal damage. And because of kind of a ridiculous event.
Yeah.
So now this little tree over here, this is an apple tree that was planted here more than 100 years ago. My favorite bear encounter I've ever had here was right here. So I think it was my 3rd week here. There was a little yearling bear, so it just left its mother, a little tiny bear about this big, and it was in the top of the trees eating the apples over here. And this guy had a huge flash on his camera, because this was like 15 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And he kept getting closer and closer underneath the tree until he's right underneath the tree, and I was standing right here. And me and another guy were trying to tell him to get out of the way. And this guy took a picture, the flash went off and it startled the bear, and the bear pooped all over the guy.
Oh my gosh.
I was 20 years old and I was standing right there. Yes!
One for the bear.
He scared the shit out of the bear.
People often ask the question of, when did Yosemite become a national park? And realistically, there are 4 answers to that question. The first being that, just like with the rest of America, we were not the first people here. So there's evidence of the American Indians living here as far back as 10,000 years ago. There's 7 tribes historically associated with Yosemite. The most common, the biggest one, I was going to use a fancy word and I completely spaced it. But the biggest one is the Awanichis, which means people of the Awani, because the valley's original name is Awani, just like our fancy hotel. And Awani means land of the gaping mouth, because they thought it looked like the earth was opening up its mouth with the cliffs as its jaws.
Whoa.
I like to joke that name's still appropriate today because all the tourists walk around with their mouths hanging out, looking at all the sides. So there's about 30 different camps throughout the valley. I've heard numbers as high as 9,000 individuals in this area. They tended mostly to the black oaks because they really relied on their acorns for their diet. And this is how it was for thousands of years. And then 1849 happened. What happened in California in 1849? The gold rush. So in 1848, there was about 2,000 Euro-Americans in what would later be called California. By the end of 1849, there was more than 100,000.
Whoa.
So what happened next is a rough part of the park's history, but it is a part of the park's history, and it didn't just happen here, this happened all over the country. So the state government approved for the formation of the Mariposa Battalion as a group of 240 volunteers, and they forcefully and violently removed them from their home. This happened several times. Eventually, about 7 years later, they were allowed to come back and live here. But by then, everything had completely changed. Thousands of years of living changed in about 5 years. So now we do not talk about them in past tense. They are very much alive. Their culture is still very much alive. Today, they're known as the Southern Yosemite Miwok. And still to this day, the United States government does not recognize them as an official tribe.
Why?
Hopefully that is changing soon. It's a big deal if they get recognition. So now, after 1851, the first tourist party came here in 1855 and was led by a man named James Mason Hutchings. I love all these old pictures. They all look like mugshots.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, this guy looks like he could still work here today. He'd be like a bartender up in Portland, Oregon, or in San Francisco or something. So now, he actually had a little magazine that he called Hutchings California Illustrated Magazine. And so through his little magazine, the world saw the first images of Yosemite. So these are drawn by a man named Thomas Aries. So now look at this, look how few trees there are. So that's how we know what the valley used to look like before pictures, was because of these drawings. Yeah, you can see just how few trees there are. So this is old Inspiration Point above what is now Tunnel View. But yeah, look how few trees there are. And so this next drawing was he did from just on the above the tree line over here, looking towards Yosemite Falls. And once again, look how few trees there are. So this oak tree right there, I'm pretty sure it's that oak tree.
Oh my
right
God.
there. So these oak trees are hundreds of years old. But yeah, look how few trees there are. This is how we know what this area used to look like. So these are the first images ever seen of the outside world of Yosemite. So now, one of the members of that first tourist party that came here in 1855 was a man named Galen Clark. You'll hear that name a lot around here. So Galen Clark was one of 14 children. He was born in 1814 in Shipton, Quebec. He's pictured here at the base of our biggest tree, the grizzly giant, looking awesome, if I might add. He had so many brothers and sisters that from the ages of 5 to 17, he couldn't even live at home. He eventually married the daughter of the family he was living with, Rebecca McCoy. They had 5 children, and then 9 days after their 5th child was born, Rebecca McCoy died of tuberculosis. And so Galen Clark was kind of a failure at almost everything he did in his life. He was the black sheep of his family. He tried all sorts of jobs, and then after his wife died, he was deep in debt and he couldn't raise his kids, so he had his parents raise his kids and came out here to be a gold miner and hated every minute of it. And while he was gold mining, he had seen the images from Hutchings magazine, and there was about 17 people of that first tourist party, and it completely changed him. He ended up going back to gold mining, and then he suffered what he called a severe attack of the hemorrhage of the lung, so a lung hemorrhage. And he said he was given up to die at any moment, and he said he went to the mountains to get better or to die, which he thought his chances were about even. He ended up not dying. He built a cabin in an area what's now called Wawona, where the hotel is near the Mariposa Grove. And so him and some other citizens were very worried about what they saw here. People wanted to harvest the giant sequoias. People wanted to mine for gold. There was buildings just being put up everywhere by James Mason Hutchings and a few other people. There was thousands of sheep and cattle being grazed here. And there's just kind of generally trash everywhere. So he talked to Senator John Conness, and then John Conness went to go talk to Abraham Lincoln. And then during the bloodiest months of our Civil War, on June 30th of 1864, Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant, setting aside the valley and the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias, which is about 60 square miles. And this was the first time in human history that land had been set aside to preserve and protect the scenic beauty of it. Cool. There had been forests in Europe set aside for hunting purposes, and there was hot springs set aside in the southeast for medicinal purposes, but this was the very first time ever that land had been protected just because it was beautiful. Wow. But it was given over to the newly formed state of California. So this is the first state park. Wow. Do you all know what the first national park is? Yellowstone, when it was created in 1872, there was no state to give it to. It was still the Wyoming Territory. That's why they get the title of First National Park, but we were the first park.
Wow.
So it wasn't until the late 1860s is when this man first came here, and this is a young John Muir. Now, John Muir gets a lot of credit for this place, but he actually wasn't here very long. So when he first came here, he actually worked and helped design and build a sawmill over near the base of Yosemite Falls for James Mason Hutchings. And then they got into a huge fight because John Muir was starting to be known as the Yosemite Authority, and James and Hutchings wasn't having any of it. So they got into a huge fight, and then he became a sheep herder. And he would take thousands of sheep from the west end of the park up to what's now called Tuolumne Meadows. And he saw the incredible amount of damage that they were doing. He called them the cloven-hoofed locusts. So him and some other citizens petitioned Congress to create Yosemite National Park on October 1st of 1890. But it was a national park surrounding the state park. They were still two separate entities. And if you can imagine the federal governments and the state governments not getting along, they didn't get along at all. And the California state government at the time was insanely corrupt because of the lumber barons. So now it wasn't until 1903 when this bully of a gentleman first came here. This is John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt standing up on top of Glacier Point. So Roosevelt had asked John Muir to be his personal guide. He wrote to Muir, he said, "I wish to write you personally to express the hope that you'll be able to take me through the Yosemite. I want to drop politics absolutely for 4 days and just be out in the open with you." And so John Muir, when he was asked by the President of the United States to be his personal guide, of course said no. He was a very, very, very weird man, in all honesty, John Muir. But so John Muir wrote to a friend, he said, "An influential man from Washington," which was a bit of an understatement. It was the President of the United States, "wants to take a trip into the Sierra with me, and I might be able to do forest good and freely talking around a campfire." And so when Roosevelt got here, John Muir agreed to be his guide. And so John Muir, a few rangers and a few Secret Service agents, when they got here, just left. They went out on a private camping trip, and no one knew where the president was for like a while. So here's Roosevelt, there's John Muir with the big beard next to him. They went out on a private camping trip. They spent the first night in the Mariposa Grove where this picture was taken.
Wow.
Where Roosevelt said he fell asleep under more than 30 blankets and woke up to 5 inches of snow and was just delighted by it. The next night they spent up at the top of Glacier Point. And then the last night they spent in the first meadow you come to in the valley, right underneath Bridal Veil Fall. And for these 3 nights, it's John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt sitting around a campfire, talking about the idea of a national park, what it meant to be a national park, what level of funding and protection should a national park have. And so this is considered to be the most important camping trip in American history. It completely changed Roosevelt, and he became much more of a conservationist. And he created the Yosemite National Park as we know it today in 1906. So now even that pretty long rant is actually a very, very pared down and condensed version of Yosemite's earlier history. So on our walk today, we talked about preservation and protection, the mistakes we've done, what we've done to correct those mistakes, our plans for the future. You've heard about the stories of Yosemite becoming a national park, from people taking care of this place for thousands of years up to the more recent stewards of the national park. But it's not just the people from the past that are stewards of the national park. We are all stewards of all national parks. Because as our population increases, as we are encroaching deeper and deeper into the wilderness, someday down the line, the national parks might be the only place left where you can truly experience wilderness and wildlife. So anything we can do to help preserve and protect them is a step in the right direction. Just from coming out on a conservancy program, you're helping put money back into the park for research and preservation. If you can donate your time, you can donate money, volunteer your time. If you have concerns about the way the parks are being run, write to your local representatives, voting for people that are going to help protect these places, because while this park may be my home, these are our parks, these are our responsibility, and we need to preserve and protect them for all of the generations yet to come. So thank you for coming out on the Sunset Show. That was an exciting one.